to Joshua, and I believe it was and then David's honor. So the first part we're talking about is qualifications for leadership, and we can see this through Moses in Deuteronomy 1, 9 through 18. I'll just put it up here on the board. Basically, what was happening is Moses was the leader, and he was getting bombarded. He had so much to do, and he was like the one leader. And so he decided that he can't do it alone. So as leaders, we have to do that a lot. We can't always do everything alone. So that's one thing that I had to work with is trying to ask people for help. And so Moses found that qualifications for that for people being wise, understanding, and respected. So I'm gonna read a little bit of this. Does anybody want to read it? Can y'all see it? Okay. Anybody want to read it? Okay, go ahead.
For example, at the time I told you you can't do this, can't carry you all by myself. God, your God has multiplied your numbers. Why? Look at you. Your revival, the stars in the sky, and may God, the God of your fathers, keep it up and multiply you another 1,000 times. Bless you just as He promised. But how can I carry all by myself your troubles and burdens and quarrels? So select some wise, understanding, and respected men from your tribes, and I will commission them as your soldiers. You answer me, a good solution. So I went ahead and took the top men of your tribes, wise and seasoned, and made them your leaders. Leaders of thousands, of hundreds, of fifties, of tens, officials adequate for each of your tribes. At the same time, I gave orders to the judges. Listen carefully to complaints and accusations between your fellow Israelites. Judge fairly between each person and his fellow foreigner. Don't play favorites. Treat the little and the big alike. Listen carefully to each. Don't be impressed by big names. This is God's judgment you're dealing with. Hard cases you can bring to me, I'll deal with them. I issue orders to you at that time regarding everything you would have to deal with.
Okay, in this passage, it talks like something with the qualifications or the things that would really be good things that have to be wise, to be understanding, respected, but also gave you some guidelines to make sure that you're not a leader that's not really listening to what everyone has to say and playing favorites or treating certain people certain ways. So basically, there's two types of leaders. You have godly leaders and worldly leaders. And basically, one thing is that godly leaders are something, and worldly leaders tend to want something. Godly leaders are, like we were saying, wise, understanding, and respected, and worldly leaders want power, fame, and drama. So can you guys think of any worldly leaders that you guys can see throughout history or even currently, the present time, of a worldly leader? Hitler. Any other examples of leaders? Napoleon. And so my question is, can someone who's in a church be a worldly leader?
Yeah.
So how do you guys give me an example of how someone in a church could be a worldly leader?
Like Jesse
Jackson.
Oh man, explain that.
Explain that, Chris. I'll explain it.
Yeah, explain that one. Jesse Jackson.
Jesse Jackson, he's a figurehead, but you would never, like, for example, I would never look at Jesse Jackson. Jesse Jackson, he has power, fame, and drama, and most of the time I see Jesse Jackson, he never talk about Christ, the gospel, or anything that has to do with the Bible or God at all. He always talks about politics or something that was wrongly done to the African American community. So I've never seen Jesse Jackson as you would say a godly leader who I don't like, or as like, or I don't see him as a godly leader in my eyes, from my perspective. I see him as a worldly leader.
Okay. Any other examples?
I'm about to say Al Sharpton.
Right behind. Do you have anything?
What about
See,
Reverend
Jesse Jackson.
Reverend?
Yeah, I guess it really. I feel like it has to do with like even though they are godly, even if they're in the world, because really there's not really like a big like we all have to experience some things like even like leaders have to take care of issues that happen in the world. But like you could describe like I'm trying to think like a Rosa Parks, even though she's not really she might be considered like a political kind of person, you could still consider her a godly leader. That's why I want you guys to understand that even though you might be a leader, like in a business company, you still can be a godly leader. You don't have to be a worldly leader. And even though it might be a pastor in a church, like I know at one of the plays we had where I was like the pastor, but I was also like the big drug dealer. Even though I'm in the church, I'm a worldly leader. I'm leading people, and I'm not really following it. So.
I guess for me, what those right there sum up for worldly versus godly is again always um, what is your heart after? Because like you said, if godly leaders are after wisdom, understanding, and respect, like respecting stuff, but worldly leaders are really after self. See, all that stuff, the power, fame, drama is only for self.
Yeah, all stuff.
The godly stuff, when you have wisdom is not for yourself. It's for everybody else, so you can give that out. Understanding, it's not just understanding yourself, it's understanding everybody around you. Respect is not for you, it's only for yourself, it's respect for everybody. So godly leaders on this payroll represent others, I will put there. And worldly leaders will say I.
Okay, yeah.
No self, yes.
Okay, so here's some definitions of wisdom, understanding, and respect. Because sometimes when we think, I know what that word means, but you only know that it's a good word, not really what it is. So wisdom is the ability to put your skills and past experiences to work in the present. Understanding is the ability to observe, listen, and learn. Someone who demonstrates the ability to consider and become informed. And respect, it means that people who do what's right, people that can be looked up to. So those are some definitions. Do you have any questions about what each word means?
Anybody else have a different take on it?
Yeah, or a different take on the word. Yeah.
I did as I studied this. I thought that the wisdom being the ability to put your skills and past experience to work in the present is probably the outcome of wisdom, but it really didn't represent or personify wisdom. I feel like wisdom is really connected to the cousin of discernment, and it helps you to discern high levels of knowledge and to apply learning in a way that is, you're like, wow, I couldn't have seen it that way, or wow, I didn't know. The majority of folks don't know, but wisdom speaks with such insight to things that will happen and might happen. And so I kind of wrote it down. I said it's the power of true and right discernment, committed to follow that action to the end. It's like you see it, you know it, and then you commit to a course of action to do something. So it's kind of the same, but it really, I thought that the spiritual gift of discernment really is what pushes wisdom forward, because you see things, hear things, know things that others don't quite know. It's not just so much your experience or your skill is coming out of a higher dimension, out of a higher place. We don't always have wisdom, it really comes from God.
I would also give another take on wisdom from like I said, I didn't really like the definition of wisdom up there either. Because wisdom to me is not just putting your skills to express in the present for work, because that to me is actually knowledge. Wisdom is how to use the knowledge. So like you said, how when you know something, how do you work it? How do you get it to be prosperous? How do you get it to be something more than just for self or just for gain? How do you actually use the knowledge you have? Because to me, that I would rate that as just knowledge. Like the ability to put skills and past experiences work in the present. I'm working in the present, but it doesn't mean I'm using wisdom when I'm working. It just means I can do it. And so, like you said, it's like discernment on how to use what you know now. And so that's why I would challenge your wisdom to change a little bit or tweak, like she said. It's not completely wrong, but just understanding of it.
And then the scriptures actually say that to know God is the beginning of wisdom. You connect to the highest bit of knowledge and understanding.